It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and this is a topic by request from a Leanna Cares client. Somebody at the end of it was a chat, text chat. I do Zoom with video, Discord audio, or Zoom audio only, but you can also chat by text in the Leanna Care service. And I wasn't sure how that was going to work out, but so far it is proving just as effective as the voice chat. So if you're, don't feel comfortable talking, but you may be somebody who prefers to write, that service is still available. Link in the description box below if you want to fill out the form. I've been working on the website a bit more, trying to shape some programs. It's kind of a challenge explaining what the service is to people. It's weird. People within sort of the certain communities totally get it. Everybody else is like, you're doing what? Story of my life. I'll just do this now. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Monthly support, patreon.com/LeannaK. Super, super important. Or buy a Leanna Care session for someone who can really use it and can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. All right. So this was a request. As they said, Leanna, you did a video on confronting anxiety, but how do you overcome it? Interesting distinction. I am always hesitant to start getting into overcome things because anxiety is a symptom, right? The underlying root of the anxiety is going to be the thing that drives what you do about it, right? And especially with things like trauma and whatnot, there are different types of symptoms connected to trauma. Someone who is hypervigilant, for instance, that's not the same as being avoidant. Sometimes people can be both, but if somebody is, on guard for any threat, you don't manage it the same way as if someone is just avoiding something because it's scary, right? If you're just avoiding something because it's scary, you can take small steps towards overcoming that avoidance. You got to be real careful not to re-traumatize, though. And this is why I'm very hesitant to give specific how to overcome anxiety advice. This is something that we do a lot of work on with Leanna Cares clients. People, especially social anxiety, fears of being judged, fears of being rejected, fears of really punishing social norms, unintentional violation of social norms leading to cancellation or other things like that. These are very real fears people have. And it's about small wins, little tiny attempts, set achievable goal, meet achievable goal. What ends up happening with a lot of people, how anxiety builds, is things seem impossibly huge. You can't get your arms around it, right? It's overwhelming. It's anxiety, overwhelm, they're really connected, right? What if I fail? Oh my God, this is life or death. Big, 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 big. The way you get through that or get around it is to break into smaller pieces. The longest journey begins with the first step, which I know is a cliche, but it's true. One foot in front of the other. You know that song? Maybe not. Anyway, it's a proven strategy. The challenge is, how big are those bites and what do they look like? And for somebody with really crippling anxiety, you do need to start extremely small. And, the how small and what that small looks like and what type of small is different for every single person. But it does there's a couple of things you can use as a compass point. I really do believe one-on-one work is the best for this kind of thing, because then we can identify people's specific goals and specific challenges. And those goals are just as important as the challenges. But, you can think about your goals and you can think about your challenges, and both matter, right? Because if you're not overcoming all this horrible stress for a purpose, and you're not seeing the benefits of overcoming all this horrible stress and anxiety, why would you keep doing it? That makes no sense. The brain is going to be, this isn't good for me. You're just heaping more and more and more and more anxiety on me, right? But if you have a goal and you can see progress towards that goal, your brain goes, aha, this is good. I get a little adrenaline, a dopamine cycle, adrenaline, dopamine. It's leveling in games, right? Okay, yes, some people speed run like Elden Ring in 28 minutes, right? But usually people don't play video games like that. It's, you learn an input. To start the game, press start. Okay. Use the left stick to look around. Is it left stick? No. Left stick to move forward, right stick to look around. Fuck it. It's muscle memory at this point, right? Pull right trigger to shoot. Use left trigger to aim. These are all goals, right? We know you have to break it down that small in a video game. It's not go win the game, right? Beat final boss. Yes, we know that is the ultimate goal of any video game, right? Unless it's a sandbox game that goes on forever and ever and ever. But we know that the ultimate you win the game state is something fairly far away, especially in these monster 100-hour games, right? But we know that the game does not expect somebody to stay with it unless they get little rewards along the way. So that's why games tend to give you a ton of leveling fairly early on, like levels like 1 through 10 tend to be just like, whoop, oh, wow, and then it starts to slow down. Because now you're hooked with other stuff. Now you sort of know the story. Now you're invested in the characters, hopefully. You kind of have a basic clue of the gameplay, so you're experimenting more. The doing is inherently satisfying, and so you don't need those tangible rewards quite so much. Or they can be rolled out slower. Life is like that too. You have to give yourself that leveling, levels 1 through 10. When it's hardest, when it seems the most far away, when it seems the biggest, when you feel the smallest, when you don't have a handle on it yet. You need to set up those reward structures so that you do something that's really freaking scary. So many people make whether that was worth doing contingent on a positive outcome. And that's not how you start. You reward yourself for trying, right? If you're terrified to talk to people, right? And you say hi to somebody in a coffee line, right? Like, even you're ordering your coffee instead of just the required, I'll have a, grande mocha frappuccino or whatever the heck. My coffee is brown and bitter. Okay. That's my coffee. I don't know, from Starbucks. My coffee is tank fuel sludge. I like black coffee. Fight me. But you're talking to the Starbucks barista. I have this little thing. I try to compliment people who are like essential workers, or even like the assistant in the doctor's office. Your shoes are cool. Try to avoid the problematic body parts. Like, nice shirt might not go over very well, but I like your shoes. I like your glasses. That's a really nice piece of jewelry, as long as it's like not hanging here, right? People like compliments because people don't see them coming, and it can really improve your day. Like, if somebody is clearly spending a lot of time on something, like there's this woman at a local supermarket. She's got a different hair color every month. So it's like orange or purple, and it's usually themed. So it's like green for St. Patrick's Day, and it's orange for Halloween and all that stuff. She'll go bright red in the fall, before Halloween. And I'll always be like, oh, that looks really cool. Like, it was blue before, right? Yeah, cool. People like being noticed positively, right? And that's a positive interaction. It's small. Now, you're not going to be great at it at first if you have crippling social anxiety. First couple times you try it, people are going to go, thanks. Why? Because you seem awkward and terrified, right? But the goal is not for somebody to go, oh, wow, thanks, let's be friends, right? It's getting the words out of your mouth. That's the piece, right? Just actually, you have died in Dark Souls, right? It feels sucky at first, like, shut up, game, I know I died. You don't have to rub it in, but you have died is now like the meme, right? We all know what it's like to you have died over and over and over and over again in a Dark Souls game. And that's what overcoming this anxiety just feels like freaking death. I mean, that's anxiety at the time. The stuff like racing thoughts at night, really dreading the next day, anticipatory anxiety. That's something different. Sleep is essential. Anything you have to do to get sleep, do it. But don't lie there tossing and turning. If after about 20 minutes, your brain isn't shutting down, get up and do something. Don't just sit there torturing yourself. Everybody is worth more than self-torture. You may be able to get past it. You may be able to just make yourself so tired that, you don't race the thoughts anymore. You fall right to sleep. That's the goal. It's better to get, 5 hours quality sleep when you got up and, played Elden Ring for 3 hours because your mind was going freaking crazy than to lie there for 6 hours and only get 3 hours sleep, if that makes any sense, right? Be very careful about which video games you play at night. I can't play Doom Eternal any more than 3 hours before bed. I just get so cranked. And Elden Ring might be one of those. I think that game would be too frustrating for me in the middle of the night. I need something chill like RimWorld, though RimWorld can get really frustrating too. Anyway, like I said, these are all very, very idiosyncratic, very, very personal steps, which is why it is really important to get that one-on-one attention. And the issue with therapy, and the reason I have no interest in becoming a conventional therapist, is that that's a diagnosis and prescription model, right? Not a goal-setting model. The traditional forms of therapy are all, let's figure out what name we can give your situation. And sometimes that's essential, right? If someone is on the neurodivergent spectrum, it's very important to know whether they have, say, autism or ADHD. Because the two can look similar in places, but they're not quite the same thing. And there are, there are medical treatments, there are medications and therapies that are very, very effective for the individual conditions. I take the approach of, all right, it may look like this, it may look like that. It's not important. What does a person want? How do we get them there? And that's a real gap in mental health services. And I was lucky enough to find somebody through York Region Victims Services when I was being stalked that took that approach. I mean, they were a lot more expensive than I am, but it's like, okay, this is practical. This is step by step. This is actually something I see working now. And it is very important to get a proper diagnosis if there is, a mental health condition. If there's a chemical imbalance, if there's something that medication can help, it's very important to get that right. And it's very important to see professionals. That's a different bucket than I'm really stressed out about this one aspect of my life. That is something that everybody feels at some point in their lives. I'm a bit concerned, actually I'm a lot concerned, that people get that state pathologized. They think whenever they feel anxious that they're doing something wrong or something's wrong with them because they've been labeled anxiety condition, or PTSD or BPD or bipolar or whatever. Like, those states are real. Those conditions are real. But that doesn't mean that every response you have is a disordered response. And even if it is, it's your life. Okay, great. You're not normal, so I'm not. What do you do about it? What's going to work for you? That's completely different person to person. And as long as it's not hurting anyone else or you, there's no wrong answers. It's trying different things until something works. We have been so primed to be terrified of failure. Everything has been treated so high stakes from the time we're like 11 years old now that people never learn how to look like an idiot and come back the next day. You guys may notice I look like an idiot and come back the next day a lot. Sometimes you have to take a break. Sometimes you have to lick your wounds, but you come back. That is a skill you learn. Resilience is not inherent. Resilience is not innate. Resilience is learned and practiced. And we should be teaching people that in like formative years. We used to teach people that more in formative years, but at some point, education stopped being learning and education started becoming programming. Like, you can just stuff genius into the head of a child and make them exactly what their parents want them to be, and they're not an individual that has some sort of innate, soul, for lack of a better term. No, I can program you to be exactly what I want you to be. Damn it. Why aren't you my every aspiration, child? I've said this before, but when Disney starts making movies about that, it's a widespread phenomenon. And it's not just Turning Red. The Mighty Ducks show has that as well in it. So it's clearly something that young people and, young adults, or maybe not so young adults, are struggling with. But that's the thing. Only you can know what's causing your anxiety. Sometimes people don't. One of the weirdest things about PTSD for me is that it was the body, the body felt the stressor, the symptoms before the mind went there. I could set my watch to between 11:15 and 11:30 at night because my body was just primed to go in a fight or flight mode because of a traumatic event. And there was a good 8 or 9 months after I knew what it was, right? Might have even been longer than that, but it was, okay, I'm freaked out. Is it? Yep. 11:20. I wasn't consciously thinking about it. It was nervous system shit. That is something you have to work through. That is something you have to accept and say, this is happening. It'll pass, because it did, right? Certain period of time. And over time, that body thing got shorter and shorter and shorter. And it doesn't happen anymore unless I'm really stupid and don't take care of myself and, push myself into some sort of renewed crisis, which is stupid to do, but we do it all the time because we're trained by society that we're not working hard enough unless we're miserable. We're not taught how to work sustainably. We're taught to sacrifice in service of a larger cause. That's a sprint, not a marathon, and life's hopefully a marathon, right? And so the first thing you have to do is figure out where the anxiety is coming from. What's causing it? Is it something you actually can do anything to counteract, or you just have to take the moment and validate what's going on, name it, give yourself permission to feel it, let it process. Sometimes that is the only way to sort of confront and overcome anxiety, is to name it, validate it, let it process. And that is a journey. It's not going to be a quick fix right away. And again, the goal is not, oh, I'm not feeling anxious this time. The goal is, I named it, I validated it, I processed it. Go me. And I actually found a technique that worked, that you keep a little book, a little journal, a small one, kind of like this size. And you keep it if you have racing thoughts at night or anything like that. When you do the steps, you name it, validate it, process it, you write it down. Hey, I did it. Just little things. You got up in the morning and went to bed, and you went to bed, you're feeling shitty, you got up, even though you were dreading work, you got up, you got dressed, you went into work anyway. Good for you. The brain does what we tell it needs to do. And if we're not telling our brains that it needs to acknowledge our achievements, that it needs to feel good at times, that it needs to go, I did that, it's never going to. That's a learned skill. That perspective of, hey, I did that. Let's take a moment to feel good about that. That worked, instead of the narrative of, okay, that could happen, but that just means something's bad going to happen. You know what I mean? Like the norm is set as the catastrophe, as opposed to the norm is set either neutral or positive. Like, hey, that was a cool thing. Let's remember that the next time things start to suck, that, good things will come again. And is there any identifiable difference? No. It's just where you weight your attention. So hopefully that helps some people, or maybe some people will start thinking, okay, maybe I can talk to a friend about this stuff. Maybe I can write it down, journal, write a letter to myself, write a story about this. There are lots of techniques to naming, validating, and processing. It's all about finding one that works for you. So you know what's coming now as we wrap up. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Monthly support, super important. But also buy a Leanna Care session for someone who really needs it. You guys have been super generous and I greatly appreciate it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching and be well.